Okay guys, here's the thing. I know that you're surprised watching me recording about HTML and CSS again, but I just feel that those last tutorials, technically they were absolutely accurate and everything was fine. I got a nice review from people, but I was recording myself and honestly I don't like that. I mean, when I watch YouTube tutorials, I just watch text on a screen and someone working there, and I don't like remembering and seeing faces when I learn about programming. So yeah, I'm gonna redo these tutorials. So sorry about that, guys, but I just need to be peaceful, like mentally, because yeah, that's how I feel. So I'm gonna do these things all over again, and that will be done in 15 days or something like that. So bear with me with this. Anyway, let's start rolling with HTML if you're for first time in these tutorials. So HTML is a markup language, it's not programming language, remember that. Programming languages are very nasty beasts like PHP and C++, C, Python, C#, and stuff like that. HTML will just help you to structure a skeleton of a web page as you want to do. Okay, so it is a markup language. It's not programming language, it's markup language. Now when we are clear with that, as I said, HTML is just a skeleton. And on top of that skeleton, you're gonna apply CSS, cascading style sheets. Those things are important if you like to, let's use that term, beautify your pages. But that's not enough, because after that, when you learn about JavaScript more, then you will create your website, your web pages more interactive. Like you're gonna have pop-ups and stuff like that, and that is not available through HTML. That is available through JavaScript. Okay, so HTML for markup things, for structure, CSS for beautiful colors, and JavaScript for pop-ups and generally interactivity. So you're probably wondering, well, how those things, HTML files, are served to us. Well, through web server, and web server is just a dedicated application somewhere around the world on some server, like normal piece of machinery. And help of that thing will be to grab these type of files with this extension, HTML and HTML, and it will render it down there on a remote location, and then through web browser it will be presented to you. So everything will be done on a side of server. Server will get the job done, because on that server you can also have MySQL, let's say, database in the background, some kind of banking stuff, something like that. So these are just raw numbers. So those numbers and stuff from database need to be presented to you through HTML and through dynamic languages like Python that will generate the reports, and when that thing is done, rendered, basically, you're gonna see it into your web browser. And web browser is just a dedicated application that will turn dedicated HTML codes, things with this structure, into specific part of what you're gonna see on a screen. So yeah, let's talk about these HTML elements. And they are just, for example, things that you will use to set the size of the font on the screen, position of those things, like how big your headings for articles will be and such a thing. So for every sub job in your web page, there are those special elements, special tags. Okay, so you will recognize tags when you see something like P or IMG, and you have those left and right arrows on them. And also there are tags actually that will be closed, like same stuff like these, but on the right side, and you will see slash in them. But don't worry about those things, okay? We're gonna learn about that over time. So generally, let's just understand this HTML stuff a little better, because it's really essential to understand a little bit of history here. So 27 years ago, we have our first HTML page on internet. But honestly, if we want to be really like pros, we need to know about Gopher protocol. And yes, there was internet before HTML, and Gopher protocol was just a thing that you can get into and see specific kind of pages. So how those things look like? Well, like this. So this is actually Netscape browser with access to Gopher server. So this was the case before web and before HTML pages. So there was internet before us. There was internet before web and before HTML pages. That's the one thing to note if you want to be professional and know about these things. So some people are asking, well, okay, I can actually use Gopher to read through documents and stuff, and but what about transferring files? Well, those things are even used today, and official terminology is FTP or File Transfer Protocol. So that's protocols you can get into some server, a web server, or Gopher server and pull those stuff from there, because those things look like this. So this is classical arrangement in Total Commander, where on one side you will see your file system, and when you log into other people of FTP servers, you're gonna see their files there. So you will just grab stuff from here and put it on your system. So that's pretty much FTP, because as I said, in Total Commander you can go to net to FTP connection and you can set actually options to get into other people's PCs. But here we are learning about HTML, okay? So you're probably wondering, okay, now we have all these fancy websites and stuff, but what about remote control of some devices? Like these days we have Alexa and stuff like that. We have routers where you can go out with your Chrome and set parameters. Well, before that we had a Telnet, and Telnet is a dedicated protocol that will allow you through this kind of old looking interface to get into some machine out there in China or USA or Germany and set parameters. And yeah, those things can be very dangerous if you don't know what you're doing, because funny thing is that there is one number of servers these days, old servers, and they are on internet, they are still open to public. So some bad people with dedicated scanners are trying to get into those machines. So this is a Telnet. This is basically what you, as someone who wanna be programmer, so you need to know about these things, about Telnet. You're gonna use it to set routers. You need to know about file transfer protocol, because that's how you will upload stuff to your hosting provider. And these are just basic things that you need to know from historical point of view. Right, so you're probably wondering, well, who is in charge of this HTML stuff? Well, in this moment, it's this website, official one, where you can find a lot of stuff about previous versions of HTML, because right now we have HTML version 5 and version 6 is rolling with a lot of improvement. But here you can learn a lot about details. Now don't get me wrong, you don't need to know these things like in detail. There is a lot of mess here, a lot of actually important stuff, but what you need to know to get stuff done as beginner is just a bunch of elements of HTML. And you're gonna learn them over time. You don't need to memorize these things or something like that. Don't force yourself to do so, because see these things in red or whatever color this is, these are HTML elements, the special HTML codes. So when you apply them in your editor, text on the screen will be structured in some way. So you can improve it after that with the CSS, with JavaScript and stuff. And question, do you need to know CSS and JavaScript to be a web developer? Yes, that's something you must know. And that's not a joke. You don't need to be expert in JavaScript if you don't like it for some reason, if you are like more PHP type of fella. But JavaScript is essential for tracking users. In a sense, you want to track advertising and visits and stuff and have a little bit of interactivity there. So yeah, if you want to grab code for advertising from Google, you need to grab JavaScript. You will not grab PHP. Google will not give you that type of code. It will give you JavaScript. So at least how to get JavaScript in HTML page you must know, and I actually have dedicated playlist for JavaScript with 40 tutorials if you like it. So don't try to memorize these things, just breathe, be cool, and we're gonna learn them over time. So honestly, you're very lucky now, because we are working with HTML5, and trust me, those versions before HTML5 was absolute mess. There are some substandards, and you need to know specific codes that you need to put on the top of page. But right now, if for example you just right click on this page, and if you go to view page source, you're gonna see this thing here. And this tick basically means when you see it with nothing else on the right side, like here between L and this right arrow. So when you see this, that means we are working with HTML version 5, and a lot of automatical stuff are done here for us. Before, you need to know specific bunch of commands to put here, and now everything is fine in such a way that your browser will know exactly what to do without you manually typing too much commands. This line here is absolute time saver. When you see it, you're working with HTML5, you will be totally pleased with these standards now. We are very, very lucky because we are going into HTML6 world, because with HTML5 and version 6, your life will be extremely easy. Trust me, you don't want to know in what kind of mess we were putting ourselves in the past decades when we are working with version 2, version 3, version 4, XTML versions and subversions. It's absolute insanity. You're very, very happy today. So I'm gonna end up here. Sorry for a little bit longer tutorial, but I just feel that, guys, you need to understand these basic things. So don't try to memorize these things. You're gonna learn them over time through usage, and yep, that's pretty much it. So that's it, guys. In the next tutorial we're gonna choose between some very, very nice working environments, editors, because yes, you can type your code in Notepad, but trust me, there are much better solutions, and I use a lot of them, so I can talk about them in details. But we're gonna do that in the next tutorial. Thank you for watching, and see you next one.